Hey all, this is 012 Boku coming at you with the finish to the movie review of Cats and Dogs. I ran out of time and room for the record on Windows Movie Maker, which I guess is at an hour, so we only have an hour to record these things. Which leads me to the point that I may go back because I saw a lot of my earlier movie reviews, and I may do these reviews differently. Like, if I do a full-on movie review, I think I'm going to write it in the future. And for these movies, I think I'll talk about the cast, what I liked about the movie, what I maybe didn't like about the movie. I'm going to start making these videos a little bit shorter and maybe a bit more entertaining. Because, I was really into it last night. I was passionate, but as you guys saw, I was even making myself tired talking about this for an hour and mentioning every great scene and things like that. And I realized that's meant for writing, so I'm going to start making these things simpler again and just doing what I used to do while also explaining the good stuff and basically probably the major points of the overall plot of the movie. So, we'll do things like that. So I think it'll be better for you guys and me because you'll notice how in these videos it'll be long. Like heck. I had to make a part 2 for this, so what's that tell you? But anyway, to continue on, like I said, Lou had gotten beaten up, Butch saved him, Mr. Tinkles was gloating while getting tossed around in the car by his minions driving around and whatnot, and he was saying how he was going to beat the dogs and, use Professor Brody's allergen to reshape the world in the way that he saw it. So, the dogs are thinking they're doomed. Lou's feeling bad for doing what he did. Butch is blaming him. All of a sudden, Ivy shows up with a piece of technology and equipment strapped to her back. And Butch realized she put a tracker on Mr. Tinkle's car, which is the Cat Tracker 9000, I guess, or 1000. One of the two numbers. I think it was 9000. And the thing is, this cat tracker is huge. It's like sticking way up on the back of the car, like the old car antennas we used to have. So it's really hilarious to see. And it's funny how Mr. Tinkles and company, don't notice. We then cut back to Mr. Tinkles, where he's, going to talk with the Brody family. The Brody family, who are tied up and blindfolded at this point, have no idea what's going on. So they get unblindfolded at the moment by the Calico, and Mr. Tinkles is trying to talk to them. And while he's doing so, you have... the Brody's wondering where Mr. Tinkle is. They don't see him. And, there's a great line from the movie where Professor Brody says, show your face, you coward. You can't hide forever. And then Mr. Tinkles jumps up on Professor Brody's lap and is like, oh, but I have nothing to hide. And then this is his reaction. Seeing Jeff Goldblum do that reaction is priceless. And, Scotty's thinking this is cool. Professor Brody's trying to figure what's going on out. And then you have Mrs. Brody, who just starts screaming out of nowhere. Mr. Tinkles laughs maniacally. You also have Ivy, Lou, and Butch show up at the flocking factory where Mr. Tinkles is planning his finished plot. There's a bunch of mice being loaded into the factory that they don't understand what's going on, and why cats need a bunch of mice when cats usually eat mice. So that part was intriguing to the dogs. And Peek and Sam are there too. They're just running a lot of backup, I guess, because they're there near the end of the movie, but they're running, I guess, a ton of backup for the film. So what ends up happening is we, once again, then right from that scene, we go back to the Brody family where Mrs. Brody's still screaming. Professor Brody's trying to get her to stop. And, Mr. Tinkles and the Calico Cat covering their ears like that, getting annoyed at her screaming. Professor Brody eventually gets her to stop by saying, you're turning blue, and she's just like that because of all the screaming she's done. And Mr. Tinkles then sets up a like test to where he takes the flock which he used Professor Brody's formula on, and this flock is like a painted green. So I guess that's Professor Brody's formula mixed in. He blows it in Scotty's face. A cage gets lowered down with a little Pomeranian dog, I think, or something like that, and Scotty starts to sneeze, proving that what Mr. Tinkles did was a success. And he's trying to finalize the troops and get things ready to carry out his fiendish plot. To where then he's like, Brody heard, I have a special gift. And, like he's reaching into a case like he's going to pull out a gun. And he does pull out a gun, but it's a cork gun, like one of those pop guns. And Mr. Tinkles is looking at this in shock because he's like, what is this? What am I supposed to do with this? And he like yells at the Calico Cat. He's like, I thought I told you to buy a real gun. And the Calico, just being as stupid and weird as he is, he's just like, his reply is, which once again is great by John Lovitz. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's like, how's that gonna help your situation? So, Mr. Tinkles in anger throws the gun down on the floor. The cork goes out of the gun, starts flying everywhere, hitting everything. Hits a water bottle, the water cooler. The water cooler then leaks out onto a bunch of wires connected into the wall. The wires catch fire, and then the room starts burning. To where Mr. Tinkles is like, I'm so clever. Like, he pointed that out all along. And as they're leaving, him and the Calico Cat are about to leave the room, but then he looks back at the Calico and he's like, I want you to stay here. Calico Cat replies, why? And Mr. Tinkles just looks at him blankly, because I hate you. And, locks him in there to die with the Brodies, which is, I think, a little unfair to the Calico Cat. But, once again, for as much as the Calico annoyed Mr. Tinkles, I could see why Mr. Tinkles did that. And then you have, Lou, Ivy, and Butch, who are in the factory. They're hiding behind a lot of the barrels, and you have the cats all lined up getting ready to flock these mice, and you have these mice set up like a phalanx position in the army awaiting orders. And then you have Tinkles coming up, getting ready for his speech, looking like Vladimir Lenin or Joseph Stalin or even Trotsky, take your pick. And, like, he's ready to give a speech, and, like, he's, like, saying, we're going to give all these great things and, make dogs allergic to humans. No one will ever trust them again. And here's how we're going to, infect the world and carry out my fiendish plan. Where he takes out a pamphlet, and it's called the World Domination Pamphlet. Everybody else has one, and they're reading it. And he's going through it to where it's like a simple diagram and a simple thing, basically explaining how directions and stuff were given to us in current times. Thought it was a great scene. And the fact that there's actually a world domination pamphlet they were trying to use, I mean, that was just... Sorry, the icing on the cake. And once again, as you guys know, you see what I mean? I'm already getting tired of being this passionate talking about it. So, it was a great scene. And while, you're probably wondering, as they did in the film with the mice, what was Mr. Tinkles going to give the mice in this movie? Well, it was a simple gift for him, and it's the continual joke I've been trying to figure out for years. Mr. Tinkles was going to give them 16 pounds of Monterey Jack in the country of Australia. Now, that's one thing I've noticed in a lot of comedic world domination movies. Why Australia? Like, what is so great about a military leader or anybody owning Australia? I mean, I know Australia's a good country, but why that particular country? Like, why particularly Australia? Why not claim the United States, Canada, Russia, England, all these other, also equally good countries. But, like, what is, like, the big thing that all villains in comedic films say? They always go to Australia first. It's always Australia. And it's always interests me because I've never completely understood it. But either way, as Mr. Tinkles tells the mice to carry out his plot, they're running to their holes trying to get out to where they need to. And while they're trying to get out, you have Lou and Butch come out of nowhere and like they scare away the mice, they scare away the cats. Everybody's running, everybody's trying to escape. Lou and Butch close the hatch. Ivy turns on a hose, starts wetting down the cats and mice, eliminating the flock. You have basically Mr. Tinkle's take off saying, I have a plan to coach. And, he just leaves. And then you have, Lou going into the main office, basically trying to save everybody else. And, he rescues Professor Brody, rescues Scotty, Mrs. Brody, and Professor Brody even gets Mr. Mason out there before he burns up. And, you have Lou trying to, get away. And a quick note here, you also have Scotty ask Lou while he's done untying him, can you talk to just like Mr. Tinkles, to where Lou grins, giving that signal that he can. And Scotty's like all shocked because he's like, oh, cool. And, being a kid, you would find that cool if your dog could actually talk human. And, you have Butch trying to look for Mr. Tinkles on the outside. And Mr. Tinkles is actually in a, forklift pulley or whatnot. But it's something to where, it's like it's like a tractor. And he's trying to crush Butch with it, trying to hit him and attack him. And he actually gets a hold of Butch. And he's about to actually crush him as he's throwing him around, to where Lou jumps out of the main office window, lands on the machine, tries to stop Mr. Tinkles, and him and Mr. Tinkles have this fight, to where Mr. Tinkles actually knocks Lou away at one point, and Lou's thinking, well, how do I beat him? And then he sees how there's this hose right next to him. And he takes the hose and he blasts Mr. Tinkles, and Mr. Tinkles basically gets blasted up against the wall to where he says, minor setback. And, so Butch is saved, and Lou's still sitting there. And somehow the flocking, because I forgot, Lou used the flocking hose, and the flocking, I guess, weighed down the machine to where the machine turned, and the hull of the machine hit Lou and knocked Lou off. Now, the flocking procedures are getting way overloaded, and this factory's about to explode from the fire and from everything else. And while it's about to explode, you have the Brodies getting out of there, Scotty wondering where's Lou, and Butch actually goes back to get him. The factory then explodes in a huge, mushroom explosion, so it's really funny to see that. And, the building's, all, in pieces, no tops missing, pieces are moving back and forth like in a cartoon. And you have, Butch and Lou still missing. All of a sudden, you have, Butch coming out and carrying Lou on a wreath, and Scotty and the Brody see this, and they're all sad because they're thinking, Lou's dead. And in a little small poignant moment, you have Butch trying to reach Lou, and he's like, Lou, come on, you need to wake up, and you were right about them. You were right about me. I was wrong. And, it seems like Lou's dead, where Scotty comes up and takes Lou and actually says, you're not a loser. I was wrong to call you a loser. You're my best friend. And he starts crying. And then, Lou doesn't look at Scotty, but you hear Lou say, and you're my best friend too. And I found out in the audio commentary that Lawrence Gutterman said that he wanted to keep that in, but not show Lou's face to make it sound like, did Lou say that to himself, or did he really talk to Scotty? And did Scotty just know by instinct he was alive? So I guess it's a little cool trick of the trade to where, they move on because everybody's happy that Lou's alive. And then in a, funny moment as well, you have Sam and Peak outside the factory reading Miranda rights to all the mice who are walking away. Looking all saddened and depressed who are involved in this plan. And they're like, you have the right to remain silent. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say. And the Calico Cat's like, oh my God. For some reason the Calico isn't getting arrested, but the mice are. And you go to it to where, some time has passed. You have the Brodies, playing ball. Apparently, Professor Brody and Scotty have gotten closer. They're playing soccer together. And what happens is while they're playing soccer, Professor Brody hits the ball into the bushes. Lou goes to get the ball. All of a sudden, Butch comes out in the secret opening they had in the fence, into where he's telling Lou, everything went okay with HQ. Everything's all good. The mission's over. Debriefing went well. And over to that part, you have Lou say, "Hey, Butch, do you want to play some ball?" And Butch is like, "No, you go ahead without me. That's your family." And Lou goes back. Remember, he's always going to remember what he has. And I guess if you could ever say if they needed Lou again, they could always come to him. But Lou's always going to go back to the Brodies because that's his family. And it sort of ends with Butch saying, you would have made a great agent, which in some ways that probably would have been true because Lou really proved himself over time in this movie. And then you have the movie hilariously end with Sophie, with Mr. Tinkles in a cage, taking Mr. Tinkles to her house because she's like, you have been a very bad kitty, and what you need to do is, because Mr. Mason isn't available to take care of you, you're gonna have to live with me and my sisters. And what happens is Sophie's sisters come down. They have all these dresses and all these costumes for Mr. Tinkles, to where it ends with a hilarious montage of Mr. Tinkles in all these different costumes, like a cheerleader, a cop, a jailer, like a princess, all these things that you probably would find degrading, and any animal would find degrading. And it just ends and fades to black with Mr. Tinkles saying, this can't be happening to me. And it's good stuff, guys. It really is. And overall, it's a good movie. It's great stuff. I'm glad I own it. And one moment, guys. Gotta take my pizza out. I do apologize. Gonna be right back and wrap this thing up. All right, guys. Sorry about that, but yeah, overall, it's a great movie. I mean, it is a really good film. You can see where the cartoony stuff that they wanted to have in this film came in and stuck in. It was just a joy to see. Like, all the actors were good. I mean, they had, like I said, they had people like Charlton Heston, who played the Mastiff. You had Paul Pape as Wolf Blitzer. You had John Lovitz as the Calico. I think it was Hamilton. I think maybe they had Hamilton Camp, or if not Hamilton Camp, I may be thinking of Danny Mann. I know they're two different names, but I know they had somebody I knew. Like Danny Mann, I know for a fact is in here. Tobey Maguire, Alec Baldwin, and the actors give such a good job. I mean, Alexander Pollock as Scotty is great. Miriam Margolyes as Sophie is a joy to see that character. Elizabeth Perkins does a great job. Jeff Goldblum is a hoot as Professor Brody, as the very smart but yet clueless, scientific, dog allergy professor. And it's just a great story, and there's a lot of great comedic elements. Like I said, a lot of James Bond moments that are made fun of. A lot of other agency movies like Mission Impossible stuff. You know, great adult humor, great stuff for kids, really enjoyable, good fun. And then most importantly, Mr. Tinkles as Sean Hayes. Sean Hayes is just, you know, great in this movie, and he's, you know, such a joy to see. And he really gave it all to Mr. Tinkles to where you could laugh your butt off with him. And overall, too, a great score by, yeah, John, believe it's yeah, John Debney. John Debney did the score for this movie, and believe it or not, this was my very first John Debney music score, and he's a great movie score, and I love the guy to death. And my only problem with one of the things he's done, which I'll mention here because I'll probably get to it later, is his score in Predators. That's the only one I've not liked, but yeah, I really enjoyed what he did for this film too. So overall, this is Cats and Dogs. I give this film a, you know, I believe I give it a 10 out of 10 because it's just, I was going to say 9 out of 10, but no, it's not just worthy of a 9 out of 10. It's a 10 out of 10 because this film just had everything. Comedy, action, you know, great stuff, great things for the whole family. This movie is a must if you've not seen it and or do not own it. I would recommend it to anybody because it's such a great film. It's weird, but it really is a good, enjoyable film. I mean, you can really laugh your butt off with everything in this movie. So, you know, that's Cats and Dogs. Just leave me a line below, you know, and, you know, thumbs up or whatnot, whatever you guys want to do. And just let me know what you thought of this movie. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Do you love the actors? Do you love what they represented? You know, who do you side with? Cats or dogs? You know, just, you know, let me know, and I appreciate it. Well, until then, guys, this is 012 Boku, finally giving you the closeout for part 2 of Cats and Dogs. And I will see you guys again soon, alright? Okay, later.